Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. We're going to wax lyrical about the wonderful performance from Devin Haney against Regis Prograis. He's elite at doing certain things, but we're also going to temper expectations because, as you always expect, people overreact to everything. All of a sudden, Devin Haney is this superstar who's a puncher and he's elite and there's no one that's going to touch him and stuff like that. Slow your roll. We're going to talk about areas where he is genuinely elite, and we're going to talk about areas where there still needs to be a lot of work done. And we're not going to care about biases of fans and things like that, because a lot of you came at me in the preview video and the fight went exactly as we expected from a technical perspective. One of the reasons people came at me, let's start off with the actual fight itself before we start talking about the future, because there are certain fights on the horizon that could be really interesting, and they're fights whereby you might expect Devin Haney to look great in, which actually he'll be at risk at, and there'll be fights that people expect to be really competitive where actually he could look really, really good against as again. So we're going to talk about those things, and if it winds people up, it winds people up. We say what we see. First and foremost, when it comes to the preview of the fight, all the elements we explained that Regis Prograis is limited at and that you would need in your arsenal to be able to be competitive against Devin Haney played out. Now, one of the things people got upset about is the fact that I was using footage of Lomachenko and the things he was doing to Devin Haney to explain that Prograis does not have that in his arsenal. I was getting people saying, why is this guy talking about Lomachenko when Devin Haney's about to fight? Or, I can't believe you're saying Lomachenko won the fight, you're biased and stuff like that. Well, first and foremost, in terms of the result, yes, I thought Lomachenko beat Devin Haney. I'm with the majority of people. Now, it doesn't mean if you're in the minority, you're necessarily wrong. I'm in the minority on many occasions, and I present my evidence and I stand on what I say. No one's telling you have to agree. But when the majority of people, including many people who were rooting for Devin Haney, feel that he lost the fight, you can't assume that every majority person is a fanboy or has a bias against your particular fighter. They see it differently from you. The other thing, when it comes to why is he pointing this out, when you're doing a film study and you're talking about how to capitalize on certain errors, you're going to look to where other fighters have had successes. Sometimes you don't even need that. When Lomachenko was going to fight Haney the first time, I was explaining how Devin Haney is actually going to have a lot of success to the body with the backhand from range. And a lot of analysts, including former fighters, former professional trainers or current professional trainers, they were talking about how they were surprised Loma had so much success to the body. Chris Algieri was one of them. I wasn't surprised. I spoke about it and showed footage in the preview. Apart from the technical elements of Lomachenko's guard and how he exits and why I felt that that could cause some issues for Loma, there was also the fact that we had the blueprint of Teofimo Lopez. You're seeing where Lopez had success in that regard. So being able to spot certain things and saying, okay, this guy's going to potentially capitalize here and there, that's not biased. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, the other area that people were shouting me down about is that I compared George Kambosos to Regis Prograis in certain technical elements, the methodology about how they go about their work. And I explained, one's a southpaw, one's an orthodox fighter, but the method in which they conceptualize creating their offense is actually quite similar. What you've got is two guys who aren't particularly tall. They don't have much coverage on their jabs. With Regis Prograis, it's a stab jab. With Kambosos, he has his hand lower and he shoots the jab, but neither one of them really steps into the jab to create length, to reach you from the other side of the ring, the way Haney will do, Deontay Wilder, Billy Joe Saunders. They don't do that deep step jab. Instead, there's less coverage. And what they're basically trying to do is slip that first shot, bypass that first shot as you commit to your punch, and then explode with a combination of punches. The problem with that is that it relies on you to enter. They're looking to counterpunch you essentially. When they need to chase you, if you're too long, if you're not too long, but you're slick and you're a mover like Mickey Bay with Kambosos, he's going to be able to chop you down and find you. If you're too good at that distance control to tag and then get out without being touched, and they have to chase you, they both have a problem. Because after that first initial shot comes in and they need to shoot that power shot, their back foot often comes off of the floor because they're trying to commit to that first shot, winging in a punch, square on, change the level and let go of vicious combinations from a fairly square position. Prograis is a little bit more bladed and tends to bend at the hip a lot more than Kambosos. Kambosos tends to bend at the knees and come underneath. So the way in which they do it's a bit different. But the concept of what they're trying to do is similar. And where Devin Haney had huge success against Kambosos and caused him a torrid time by capitalizing on that, because it just didn't match up well stylistically, I was saying how that could also play out in the fight with Prograis. And a few of you were going off on how can you compare Kambosos to Prograis? Well, now maybe you see it. In fact, Kambosos did better than Prograis. 10% of punches is what Regis Prograis landed, the lowest in CompuBox history. He was also hit a lot more consistently. Devin Haney couldn't miss with those backhands. And when Haney was asked about Kambosos and what it is that surprised him about him, he said he's actually a lot harder to hit than I anticipated. He's got underrated defense. Regis Prograis wasn't evasive last night. When Kambosos fought Haney the first time around, they actually landed an equal number of power jabs, or power shots. I think Haney landed one more. It was the jab count where there was a massive gap. And that was because of that distance control and closing the gap. And we used the analogy back then of the swordsman versus the spearman. You had a similar sort of thing here. It was a guy coming with a sword in Regis Prograis against a guy with a really long spear, and he just couldn't reach. And so by overreaching, he was getting countered. Now, the other narrative that's begun is this idea that Devin Haney is this newfound power puncher now that he's put on weight. Listen, he's a superb fighter. He's magnificent at bending at the hip, changing the level, touching you, getting out, making you fall short, countering you. It's a joy to watch how good he is at those things. But one thing he's not is a power puncher. Yes, he dropped Regis Prograis. Lovely surprise shot. Prograis hit the canvas. He was getting up on the count of 1. He was up by the count of 2. It was a typical flash knockdown. Now, why did the flash knockdown occur? Because Prograis, when he enters the pocket, he enters in quite a predictable method. He sways his body according to his steps in quite a predictable method. It's not like Canelo. When Canelo's going to put his front foot forward, sometimes he'll dip in with it. Other times he holds back. Sometimes he'll slip to the left or slip to the right. He's constantly changing the looks with that same step. And because of that, you can't read the pattern. Prograis doesn't do that. He gave Haney a pattern. And he's timing that movement. He lands that right hand. Prograis tries to pull back. His feet get too narrow. He ends up dropping on the floor. It's a balance issue. As the fight wears on, he now has to start overreaching and taking risks. At that point, he walks onto some solid shots. Now, I've always said on this channel, the idea that Haney is feather-fisted is overstated. I've always said he's not a pillow-fisted guy. But when you're an average puncher, when a guy's going to run into one of your shots, it magnifies the power. You've got two objects colliding with each other. So what happens is it has more of an effect because, number one, you're overreaching, so your balance is off. You're moving onto the punch and you're caught and you're buzzed. When you're landing as frequently as he was landing on Regis Prograis and you're still not knocking him out, you're not a puncher. If he was in there against a puncher like Teofimo Lopez, like Matthias, like whoever else is a puncher in that weight category, even someone like Rolly Romero, if you're eating that amount of shots, you're going to get knocked out. Now, these guys, Rolly, for instance, wouldn't dominate Prograis like that. It's possible that Teofimo Lopez wouldn't dominate him in the same way that that Haney did, and Prograis would have a chance against these other guys because he would actually find the target. Just because one guy dominates you, it doesn't mean it translates to another. Triangle theories don't work. Most people felt Lomachenko beat Devin Haney. Teofimo beat Lomachenko. Perhaps you feel Devin Haney beats Teofimo. And if you don't think that Haney beats Teofimo, Teofimo lost to Kambosos. Haney schooled Kambosos. These triangle theories just don't apply. Styles make fights. And you keep using that phrase, but a few of you actually believe it. And you know how I know that? Because there are a few of you that will agree with me when I say it, that styles make fights. And then you're instantly dismissive when today you're hearing potential links of someone like Ryan Garcia fighting him. Oh, Ryan, he doesn't even know how to do the shoulder roll. What's that got to do with anything? How often would he have to use a shoulder roll against a fighter of the style of Devin Haney? Devin Haney's not going to look to collapse the pocket and walk him down and start winging in power shots from mid-range, and he's going to have to start rolling with shots. That's not really his game. You've got two guys who are tall. Ryan's even taller, in fact. I think Haney might have a slight advantage on range. They're both athletic. Ryan's definitely got the faster hands. He hits harder. They're 3-3 in the amateurs. So they were competitive together in the amateurs. But even that, then, the amateur system would suit Devin Haney more than it would suit Ryan Garcia. Because when a guy carries power, it's easier to be evasive for 3 rounds than it is for 12. You're sharper. As you start to become less and less sharp, well, then you're potentially going to get caught with something. In addition to that, unlike Regis Prograis, Ryan Garcia can target the bend. He can throw those shovel hooks and uppercuts, which are really powerful shots for him, particularly the shovel hook. And you saw it drop Luke Campbell, and he uses it well with misdirection. It might have landed to the body, but if Luke had tried to duck and that landed on the temple, has a similar effect. The point is, just because one guy's superior to another from a technical perspective, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to win the fight. So that's actually an interesting stylistic fight. Personally, I think he should be targeting undisputed. We want to see a guy develop a legacy. You don't want to be in a position where he goes and fights Rolly Romero because it's going to make him a lot of money, but then not fight Subriel Matias because who knows him. That's how you start to manufacture a path. To be the best beyond dispute, you have to conquer the division. Now, he was undisputed in the division below, but he claimed all the belts in one fight. In the second fight, which was deemed his first defense, proper defense against Vasyl Lomachenko, the majority thought he lost. So, yes, he's put in some wonderful performances against the likes of Kambosos and against the likes of Prograis, great wins, but you want to see him in there as well against guys that offer something different. Not just shorter guys with short arms, guys that are going to be able to put him out of his comfort zone. Teofimo Lopez, another one who's shorter with a shorter reach, but that's a really good fight. Teo's got some really good feet. You saw in the Sandor Martin fight, very difficult to get to, and that caused him some problems, but he was able to figure it out. I had him winning by a single round. I know a lot of people out there had him losing the fight, but it could end up being that style of fight. So it could be interesting, but Devin Haney will look at that and say, you know what? I move in a better way than Sandor Martin. I'm faster. I change the level better than him. So if he was struggling to close him down, how's he going to fare against me? I could actually look sensational here. Whereas with Ryan Garcia, who might not be as good as Teofimo Lopez from a stylistic perspective, there are other problems there. The Tank Davis fight, I'm all for that fight. I love the idea of it because Tank is very explosive and a very good counterpuncher. So where he's going to sit there and try and keep him on the end of the jab, it's very possible that Tank's walking him down and then lands something big and turns it around. Having said all that, if you want that fight, you have to be realistic about expectations because there's been a development whereby fighters obviously are no longer weighing in on the day of the fight, but they used to be weighing in the night before, the evening before, the afternoon before. Now, with Devin Haney's last two fights against Prograis and Lomachenko, it's been on the morning before the fight. 36 hours before a fight is way too long to be given in order to weigh in, to then replenish. You're going to be getting guys that are 3-4 weight categories naturally bigger than other guys that they're facing. When I had Steve Kim on the channel, he was talking to me about how pro fighters were saying, if you're going to be weighing in that much before a fight, you might as well have it on the Tuesday of fight week.
I know the process that he has to go through to make weight. If you went back to the olden days where guys weighed in at 8 o'clock on the morning of the fight, he might be a welterweight. But nowadays, this is the reality. Sometimes, Chris, those weigh-ins that you see from the States that are in front of thousands of people that are televised, those are all ceremonial.
Yeah.
They've actually weighed in sometimes 5, 6, 7 hours before. So when people say it's the day before weigh-in, I say no, now it's the 30-plus hour weigh-in. And Ray Boom Boom Mancini, a great friend of mine, who had the box 15-round fights where he had to weigh in at 8 o'clock in the morning of a fight, he said, Steve, that's a joke. You might as well weigh them in on Tuesday.
Because the amount of time you've got to replenish, you're not really making the weight. It's not a factor. As long as you hit that target, you don't then have to contemplate about, right, what weight category do I really belong in? Because what I've been saying is if you want the Tank fight, sure, make it a 140. But if you're going to make Tank step up to 140 because he's fought Barrios there in the past, have the weigh-in on the day of the fight or at least the night before. I'm against rehydration clauses. I think they're dangerous, but at least the night before. That way, Devin Haney hasn't got a chance to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to come in at 170 pounds. You don't want to see Tank at 145 or 150 against Devin Haney coming in at 170 or 175 pounds. What is it you want to see? Who's the best or who's the bigger guy? Do you understand what I'm saying? Let's not facilitate weight bullying. And it's not just Devin Haney that does this. Okay, Zurdo Ramirez is an example of it. Jarrett Hurd used to do it a lot. I could be here all day. We need to stop, though, the idea that it's okay to start bringing weigh-ins further and further forward to benefit the A-side fighter. And this has started an argument on Twitter with people saying, actually, Devin Haney was the one being hurt by having to make lightweight. What are you talking about? When fighters boil down, they boil down as an advantage. They ain't doing this for charity. They ain't saying, yeah, let me go help another guy out. They're sitting there thinking, I've got an advantage here by being a significantly bigger man. And when you look at the attributes of Devin Haney, he relies on that reach. He wants that reach. You're more likely to have a longer reach against men that are naturally smaller. You're going to have anomalies. But by and large, the bigger you are, the more your height's going to be, the longer your reach is going to be. And the other area is his ability to wrap people up. Regis Prograis couldn't get close to him, so of course he didn't have to tie him up. But when you're faced with that possibility, you want to be the bigger man. So how does he measure up against other fighters where he doesn't have that luxury? That's what we're going to have to figure out moving forward. Conor Benn has been mentioned today as well after Bill Haney was saying they'd love to fight Conor, and Conor was saying let's make it happen in Tottenham Stadium in February. I'd love that fight because you've got a supreme technical fighter in Devin Haney, and then you've got an unorthodox athletic guy who can punch in Conor Benn. Now when I say I'd love the fight, we're talking aside from the whole PED discussion. We're talking about from a stylistic perspective. Conor, like his father Nigel, could bring chaos with the unorthodox aggression and trajectory of his punches. And so that can sometimes throw off a very good technical fighter. Look at the way Ricardo Mayorga used to give guys trouble. And because Ben hits hard and he's athletic, and Conor Benn would never, Devin Haney would never have been hit like that before, it provides some interest. So whichever way he goes, hopefully we start to get to see fights that are different from a stylistic perspective. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. It was a wonderful performance from Devin Haney. Brilliant display. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.